Is 6 o'clock. I would like to call to order the annual budget adoption meeting. May I get a roll call, please?
Yes. Megan Miller? Present. Tom Hankins?
Here.
Brian Anderson?
Here.
Brian Nichols?
Here.
Amy Levy? Here. Greg Schneider?
Present.
And Tia Johnson?
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. Can I get an approval of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Brian Nichols and a second by Brian Anderson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. That brings us to item 2, public comment. Ms. Shope, is there any public comment tonight?
I do not have any emails, and I do not have any public comment cards.
Okay. Are there any members that would like to, members of the audience? Okay, wonderful. I mean, not wonderful. Don't take that the wrong way. We would always love to hear your input, always. That brings us to item 3, the established tax levy budget adoption. And the first item there is A, 2024-25 budget adoption. And tonight we've got Dr. Garrison presenting with assistance from Bob Chady, and this purpose is the school board shall adopt an original budget at a school board meeting scheduled after the public hearing and no later than the meeting in which the school district sets the amount of the tax levy. The school board must set the tax levy and adopt an original budget on or before November 1st. The background information on this item is the 24-25 preliminary budget was published in the Beloit Daily News on September 3rd, 2024. The 2024-25 preliminary budget information was presented to the board and the public through the annual budget public hearing on September 18th, 2024. The board will adopt the final budget on October 30th, 2024. The original budget now incorporates changes that have become known over the course of the past 6 weeks, including utilization of the $11,325.36 per member within the revenue limit, third Friday in September pupil count reports results, certified equalized property valuation for the district, certified state equalization aid amounts, along with other local changes. Dr. Garrison.
Yes, the presentation that was conducted on Monday pretty much gave us a snapshot of our budget. There has been no changes to our conversation since Monday, and the administration would like to move forward with our current conversation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chady, any changes or other comments? No. Okay. Go ahead.
I move approval of the original budget for the 2024-2025
I'm so sorry, my
year.
hand is raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Levy. I did not see that. Mr. Anderson, do you mind if we pause on that?
I don't mind at all.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chady, and this can be very brief, if you could just summarize the expenditures going out, and please feel free to do those in broad categories with respect to open enrollment out and what we are paying that amount for, also the projected amounts for like transportation, tutoring, et cetera. So just basically that the amount that is leaving our district because of open enrollment out, and the financial responsibilities that we're carrying because of that.
Yeah, let me see if I can find the visual maybe to go with that.
slide number you're looking at, Mr.?
Yeah, I'm not, gonna go to a slide. I'm
Okay.
trying to go, I'm gonna present this document real quick. Oh,
I can stop presenting, sorry.
yep. I'm gonna grab it. And then I gotta get to, there we go. So purchased instructional services, basically the total value of costs, $17.2 million as compared to $15.4 million last year. Total. You probably are interested in like specifics with regards to open enrollment, vouchers.
Just large categories, so I'm thinking there's probably like 5 or 6 of those, but thank you for pulling up that total. I just wanted to reiterate for the public that is hopefully watching and for those in the room that that's above $17 million, and is that just for the 24-25 school year?
It is indeed, yep.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure thing.
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Chady?
Then I would move approval of the original budget for the 2024-2025 school year.
I'll second.
I have a friendly amendment. I'm going to pass these out so that everybody, there's no misunderstanding. So if you'd take one and pass it down, and Board Member Miller, if you could give one to Mrs. Shope, I'd appreciate it. Oops, I forgot to keep one for myself. Thank you. Okay, I move approval of the proposed. I'll let you till everybody gets one.
Would you mind reading?
No, go ahead. All set? Okay, I move approval of the proposed 24-25 budget with the following changes. Number 1, a total of $1,444,231 million as recommended by the ad hoc committee in salary and position cuts from COLAC. Number 2, removal of the SRO funding transfer of $283,449 to Fund 80 until the board approves the necessary MOU and program changes to the SRO current program. Number 3, the use of $2 million from Fund 73 to pay full-time classroom teachers sign-on bonuses of $5,000 for each new hire and longevity pay of $5,000 for each full classroom teacher currently employed. Each bonus would be payable over a 3-year period. All money paid prior to the 3 years would be required to be refunded if the teacher leaves the district before 3 years.
Does the motion maker accept that friendly amendment?
Just need a second.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
No problem. It's easy to forget that we've limited to 3 here. So we have a friendly amendment by Brian Nichols, seconded by Tom Hankins.
Point of order.
Please.
Sorry. So it's not like a friendly, we're not amending the motion on the table. I just want to be clear because we would have to vote on both. Okay, thanks.
Right.
But I do have my hand
I'm
up for
sorry,
another
it's
reason.
technically no longer a friendly amendment. Okay, any discussion?
Yes. After a lot of thought and some of the comments that we heard the other night from various members of the public and teachers and public, we're having trouble retaining teachers, and we're having trouble finding teachers. And the two things that were mentioned last night just seem to make a lot better sense after sleeping on it and giving it a lot of thought. And and that's one of the district goals. Is goal number 4 is to retain 20% of our current staffing, and that would, I believe, certainly help that happen. And we've already back to goal. The number 1 is we've already cut for $500,000 out of COLAC, but so that would basically mean another $900,000 and change that would need to be cut. And then I think the SRO funding just makes sense so that we don't run into a problem with SROs down the road. So I think these are equitable amendments that will lead to increased academic achievement, more support in the classroom, and lead to a better use of the budget and the money that's setting aside. Thank you.
Ms. Miller?
Thank you so much. Here, let me unhand my thing here. All right, so having seen this for the first time a moment ago, I just quickly jotted down some thoughts on each point, if that's all right. My reaction to, I'm going to work backwards. I literally just came from having coffee with a member of the ad hoc committee who stressed to me their opinion about how fiscally problematic this person finds even using the 2.6 from OPEB. Now, I would still support the recommendation of our administration because that seems to be, as Mr. Chady characterized it, like the least worst way to handle the budget situation. So I think that it would be unwise to go against the recommendation of the ad hoc and the administration in this matter, while it is extremely tempting to give funding to our teachers. That's one point. A further point about that is, and I'm not sure what your math is because this is the very first time that any of us are seeing this, but I don't know if that includes like our paraeducators. I'm not sure what equity issues this brings up in terms of pay, what is considered longevity, et cetera. This is like a whole can of worms. Now, if we wanted to do something like this with additional OPEB funds after we approve the budget, we can still do so. So if this is something that the board is serious about, I would recommend after we approve the budget, working with administration to maybe like kind of create some sort of addendum plan for this that would fully take all of these things into consideration in a planful and intentional way so that we don't accidentally cause more harm than good while this seems to be a very good intention move. So unfortunately, I cannot support that recommendation at this time. Second, the SRO situation. I was the board president the last time we drafted a new contract for the SROs. This caused a great deal of turmoil in the community because we had to draft a brand new agreement, there was unfortunately some rumors that I believe were maliciously spread around about us like not even intending to do an SRO contract when in fact we had to kind of create a brand new one because of the previous contract's language. And the way that that contract was written was to take out the role of the board president in creating it and put it back into the hands of the administration. So because I'm very aware, as those of us who were on the board at the time are, it's up to the administration to develop that contract along with the city administration, right? And I mean, ultimately we approve it, of course, right? So I can't support your recommendation on number 2 because the SRO situation is something that has been proposed by our administration, who have fully and capably handled actually expanding the SRO program in the time that of recent history, right, over the last 5-6 years. It's up to the administration to do that, and we have no evidence at all to suggest because these services have been both expanded and continue without any interruption, no evidence to support that the administration wouldn't do its due diligence in skillfully and professionally continuing this program and making any necessary adjustments. So unfortunately, I can't support number 2. Lastly, the recommended cuts, which you just threw out another number in addition to the paper that you just gave me, which I have no way of verifying on the spot in this moment, nor do any of our colleagues on the board. I can't support that. And the reason for that is even under the ad hoc committee's own accepted, like, what are we going to do that's going to cause the least harm to students, and like, let's not touch teachers, eliminating administration without a plan. Well, I believe we also heard from the ad hoc committee the importance of the intentionality and planfulness of making cuts. Making another several $100,000 or something of cuts, there's no plan for that. There's no intentionality around who would be cut and why. There's certainly no guarantee that it's not going to disrupt our classrooms, because when you remove those people, the work remains. And that work is already spread across so many administrators. It trickles down into classrooms in the form of either additional duties or lack of infrastructure to support the work of our teachers. And I cannot in good conscience support cuts that are going to cause a disruption and additional burden to the people who are already tasked with the frontline day-to-day work of keeping our kids safe and educated. So while I appreciate very much your comments about what you slept on and what you've grappled with, because there are no simple solutions at all. It's a complex problem. I would have to support the motion that Mr. Anderson made to support the recommendation of our administration for all the reasons that I've delineated, and in summary, because that's the plan that our people are equipped to execute. That's the best chance that we have to continue to stabilize in an otherwise unstable time. So thank you. I'm sorry for the lengthy comments, but this came kind of arbitrary, kind of out of nowhere, and so thank you.
Thank you. Other board members? Board Member Levy?
Thank you so much. I'll be brief. This October surprise is wearing, is the best way I can categorize it. But I don't want to make any assumptions. This is the very first time I have seen this. So 2 questions to the administration. 1, is this your first time seeing this document? And 2, do we know what the budget implications are of approving the things on this piece of paper?
This is the administration's first time seeing this, and at this current time, we cannot speculate around what the budget implications will be on any of these opportunities. I think one of the things I want to say to your question, Mrs. And sorry I didn't ask for it. One of the things I want to say to your questions is for items number 1, 2, and 3, hearing this for the first time today does put the administration in a space in which we have to execute a budget by tomorrow. And that is not how we would typically, move a budget forward in less than 24 hours. And that is a fact. We've taken, and I say we, a lot of people have taken a lot of time into preparing budgets in this conversation. And items number 1, 2, and even 3 could have different implications on how we do business, not just now, but also into the future.
Thank you so much for that clarification. And for those reasons and others, I will not be supporting this amendment.
Board Member Greg Schneider?
Again, as I look at these items, again, it's last minute. The budget has to be approved. We have to put forward the mill rate, and so that deadline is here. And adding these at the last minute is not going to allow administration time to make all the adjustments and the changes that need to happen before we have to file the mill rate, which is very short. again, number one, if we're cutting more, we'll have to cut a lot more out of the COLAC. We have people working in those positions right now, and to have to turn around and make those changes immediately without giving any thought to how the duties and tasks are going to be moved to other positions and what that impact is going to be. I mean, if we remove enough people out of the business office, then which checks are not going to get cut? Then are there going to be enough staff left to be able to make sure that the BEA gets paid on the regular basis that they're at, or do we have to make changes in that pay cycle? So there are a lot of things that would happen with that. Again, understanding that in the future, we're still going to need to make cuts. These are good things to pass forward as recommendations to administration to consider as we're going forward with that. Number three, there is some real budget implications for both the district and for the community if we look at number three. And I know right now they're allocated to pull money out of Fund 73 to cover a shortfall, but that's whatever that shortfall happens to be at the end of the year. It's not guaranteed that they're going to pull the 2.6, I believe, or roughly, out of there to cover something if we don't need to do that. I think it's too short a period of time in order to implement these with the legal deadlines that we have facing us. I cannot support the recommendations.
Thank you. Any other board members? Board Member Hankins?
Yes, and thank you for this fruitful discussion we're having. Looking at it 1, 2, and 3, and maybe we could go bullet point by bullet point because they're all different. I want to remind myself that our board, number one charge, or one of the top charges, is to control the budget. So to say we're at the latest hour, we all knew this was going to happen. And changes happen. I think Mr. Chady knows, Dr. Garrison knows. So to say that, we have to do this because it's the last minute, not so much. So I'm all in favor of listening to what the proposed amendments are and how they affect the use of $2 million from Fund 73, how they affects. It's different they're all different caveats to the budget. So I would like to go through them one by one rather than take them as a whole. Ad hoc and, quite frankly, the community has been focused on COLAC and cutting top administration. Whether it is true or not true, but it's the truth that it is what is being talked about in the community. Whether the people in COLAC have any effect on teaching staff in the buildings, I'm not sure. And quite frankly, I'm just talking because I don't know. I don't know if we were top heavy or not. We're not. I don't know. I wish I knew. So I don't know if, the projected recommendation to cut this and then nothing came out of administration for COLAC, that's up to Dr. Garrison to defend, not my position. He's the professional in the building. The SRO and Fund 80, and I like what Vice President Nichols said about the new SRO. There's some concern from people about the funding of that, and that it could disappear if Fund 80 were to go away. I know it was always in the general fund before, and moving it out, I'm not sure. I'm just not sure if that's a good idea or not. If we could just study it a little bit more. Full-time payment of teachers and stuff, I'm all in favor for. And if, just as a Beloit person, if this money that's sitting in OPEB was put aside for teachers and their retirement, why not stick it back in teachers? To me, it makes total sense. Back whenever that was established for that fund, and it's no longer being used, I don't personally believe in throwing it back in the general fund for whatever. I think I'd like to see it earmarked back for teachers and people in the classroom. So I understand the whole thing. I'm not going to say whether I'll vote for, but they're all three are different, and maybe we could, if separate them, would be more helpful for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just say that any of these three have their merits and good discussion points. I think, our duty and task as a board is to, in turn, task the administration, our employee, our superintendent, with creating the budget. We can certainly influence the budget, but we don't create the budget. I think each of these have had their due diligence throughout the process. We gave administration some guidelines, bring us a balanced budget, cut $10.8 million. We instructed and developed an ad hoc committee, said bring your recommendations, and gave administration direction to hear those recommendations, incorporate what makes sense, and I think they brought forth. I think they've done those things and brought forth a budget. I think the time to tweak that has come and gone. Not that we couldn't do some of these things. Obviously, once you move something to a different fund, that's down the road. But as far as decisions of giving one-time, bonuses to teachers or additional personnel moves, I think that's an ongoing moving target that I think administration does in the normal course of business. So I don't think it's the board's role to get to that level of granularity. And so I'm not going to vote in favor of this amendment to the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Chady, if you would clarify something, earlier in our discussion tonight, it was said that you described using OPEB as the least worst way to balance the budget, but on Monday, the notes I took, DPI told you that it was doable, but that we needed to think about the consequences because they were big, and that according to you, it was not, or you posed the question, isn't WISE sound fiscal policy? And you responded to yourself, not really, it isn't. My personal preference would have been to use about 10% of the OPEB trust for budget stabilization purposes if needed. Even at $400,000, you stated it gave you tummy trouble, and then you went on and said, but we are where we are today. This is the way that we would, quote, unquote, balance the budget to make certain our revenues equal our expenses. So is this the least worst way to balance the budget?
Given where we're at today, probably.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Garrison?
Yes, I also want to make sure that it's clear that in our presentation, it did state that OPEB money could be used if needed. I think that's also something that the public needs to be aware of as well. We know that at the end of the school year, there may be, just as it's been since I've been here, some form of surplus that lo and behold, unless something else happens, that we could use to not even touch the OPEB money. I think the if needed is a statement that's also being left out of the thought, and it also needs to be brought back in the thought because, again, this allows us to balance the budget for now, if needed, and that's not until June of 25, in a nutshell. And so I just want to make sure I bring that back to the thought because the if needed was also in parentheses in that statement.
Amy Levy?
Thank you. Since we've heard from everyone, I'm ready to call the question on the amendment.
I'd like to give the board members a second chance to loop around, and I have not spoken on the issue yet. Any other board members that would like to speak to this issue? Mr. Hankins?
Yes, and I'm not saying that I'm having, not that I don't discount 1, 2, or 3, but we're gonna vote them together. So I'm just like a little bit more time to weigh that in, and but I guess that's the way the rules go. So thank you. Never mind.
Ms. Miller?
Thank you so much. Mr. Hankins, I'm really sympathetic to where you're coming from. And I think one thing that I just want to reiterate is, because you said, like, all 3 of these recommendations are very different. I think, for example, considering what more, if anything, we could do for our staff, like whether paraeducators, teachers, et cetera, is absolutely still a conversation that can occur. One of our board goals, right, is staff retention. And so, like, I guess we don't need to think about it in terms of, like, it's a now or never decision, because at any course of the year, our administrative team could, in their effort to look into retention, see how things are unfolding or come up with a plan. I think everybody here has heard that there's a desire. It's right here in writing. This isn't the only opportunity. So I guess I just wanted to speak to that piece too. And just again, to reiterate with the MOU with the SRO, us approving this makes it possible, but we're not like right at this moment. It's not going to like poof happen right now. Of course, like that work that I think really good concerns have been expressed around is going to take place, right? And it's like, so this isn't like a now or never written in stone piece. What's really the original motion that's on the table is to approve the recommended budget from our administration, who has now heard both on Monday and today, like a lot of these different thoughts and ideas. Once that's approved or in whatever form, there's still like room to do some of these things, to make these considerations, make sure that accountability is there, right? For like the MOU for the SRO, we have that option, absolutely. So I guess I'm feeling where you're coming from, and I want to just sort of offer that perspective. The other reason that I had my hand up before and then took it down, Board President Johnson, because of course I wanted you to have a chance to weigh in before I spoke again. I'm just wondering, to address the point that was brought up about administration and the impact on the classroom and like to what extent, I think that however we decide this evening, it would be really helpful going forward if we could get some sort of, whether it's a board presentation or something, just to help build understanding, because every district is different, like how in this district, like to what degree, like does that really, like how intertwined is that? Because I think it would help all of us and shed some light on like what all of these impacts are, right? Like what impact does, a COLAC employee and their work have on the classroom? What impact does that have on student outcomes? I think would just like be really helpful for all of us to understand. So I appreciate that that's been brought up, and I wanted to just sort of voice a thought going forward to kind of help us move forward maybe more clearly and cohesively, I guess, around that issue in the future, whichever way we go tonight.
Thank you. Any other board members? Mr. Hankins?
Yes, and I'm going to belabor the subject because this is a very important duty we're doing tonight. It is our charge to make sure we do this right. So forgive me. If there is a way to use the OPEB money, because it was created for teacher retirements, if we could tie that back into teacher salaries and incentives, I would be much more comfortable with having the option to use that. I know there's $4 million or so in the budget for teachers that haven't even been hired yet. And I understand that, so that will stay there until springtime. And if we don't hire teachers, when we'll have a carryover, then we don't use OPEB. I would like to have a caveat in there, an addendum or whatever that word is. If we use this money out of OPEB, then it should go back to teacher retention and salaries.
Any other board members? President Nichols?
Well, thank you, all of you board members for your comments. I appreciate them. But to clarify one thing for Board Member Miller, this would be each full-time teacher, full-time classroom teacher, not a para.
So not including para-educators?
No.
Thank you so much for clarifying.
So, again, as Board Member Hankins has so eloquently put, I mean, we're struggling. I don't know how many openings we have today. I'm sure somebody here might have that number, but we still have teacher openings that we haven't filled, and we're well into the year now, and so to your point, again, Board Member Miller, how does cutting the administration affect the classroom? Well, I don't know, but it's sure being affected right now by not having enough teachers in the classrooms. So I think one way or the other. I think this would be a good use of the Fund 73 number, money that Board Member Hankins mentioned. I understand it's last minute. I've shared with you all several times. I've been through this before in corporate America. When you get a letter from the board that they're going to cut 3,000 jobs or 5,000 jobs or 2,000 jobs, somehow every one of those companies make those cuts and still operate their business. It's amazing. It just happens. It doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of hard work to make it work. So I've been involved in it, not to that level, thank goodness, but it's you can see when you really look deeply, as you guys did, you can pick out things that probably could be done more efficiently. So anyway, I'm not going to belabor the point. I feel strongly about these three goal changes, but it's up to the will of the board. So thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Miller?
Thank you. Just quick points. Cutting administrative positions right now does not equate to being able to hire more teachers. And as Mr. Hankins just pointed out, we do have funds budgeted to hire more teachers without making those cuts. 2, paraeducators also receive benefits. So that the OPEB funding that you talked about isn't just was earmarked originally to help with benefits for teachers, I believe as an outcome of Act 10, but that would have also included paraeducators, which again kind of just, highlights kind of just that equity, just having a plan, in place, which again, passing this budget originally recommended doesn't stop the administration or us from pursuing this discussion or a discussion like that further. 3, if we don't have to use OPEB at all, That is the most fiscally responsible thing to do. I would love to hear at the end of the year that, hey, the way things shook out, we didn't even have to touch those dollars because it's not really we're not in a great situation. And I think in terms of being fiscally responsible and accountable to our community, if we can avoid using that at all, that would be ideal. So I just thank you and so much for the spirit of many of these proposals. I don't think that the conversation around most of this is over tonight, so I think, it's good that it was raised, but I'm still in favor of our original administration recommended budget.
Thank you. Any other board members? Mr. Hankins?
Yeah, in a perfect world, I think it would be nice to say that the $4 million we have in reserve. Let me get this straight. We take the 2.6 and give, and that'd be up to Mrs. Chady. Let's combine them together. But because we don't know how many teachers are going to be hired between now and March or whatever that date is. So if we use compensation to keep our teachers and incentivize them to stay here, and then out of the $4 million we have in reserve, and then go to the 2.6 if we needed to, as long as it stayed in the same realm of teacher and boots on the ground compensation. And I'm not sure how that all works fiscally or financially, but to me, it's a common sense approach to it. Thank you.
Mr. Schneider?
Two just quick comments. One is if we look at the bonuses at this point, or item number 3, we have contracts right now with all of our bargaining units. We have not addressed it with them. What would be the impact with all of their membership if a few people that are hired on got a bonus that others did not get? While it might be good bringing people in, I'm not sure how, I'm not sure when I was in the classroom how well I would take it that somebody coming in right now would all of a sudden get a bonus and get paid more than I do. So there are some issues there with that, so we can't do that in this short a period of time. And the other one is, as Vice President Nichols said, you're right, in business, they put it down and you have to do it. But we are caught where we have legal deadlines that we have paper that needs to be filed. We don't have the luxury of saying, okay, we're going to take 30 days in order to make this work. We have, I think our tax levy has to be turned in by November 1st, right? We don't have the time at this point to pursue that in this year's in this year's budget. At this time doesn't mean that those aren't things that we can't continue to work with. That's like in the future, as I said, we are going to have to continue to reduce spending in the district in the future. So.
Vice President Nichols?
Board Member Schneider, thank you for your comments. Just to clarify, this would cover both groups. This would cover new hires and current teachers. So that would cover both groups. Each new hire, and then longevity pay of $5,000 for each full-time classroom teacher currently employed. So it covers both. There would be no, oh, you didn't get that, and I did it, and you did, and so.
I don't think there's that much money in the account.
Okay, all board members have had 1 or 2 times or more to weigh in. I wrote down some thoughts that I had earlier today, thinking over our budget process, our goals, the 4 goals that we've recently approved for the district including one on improving student achievement, one on a balanced budget, and I mean, I understand that we have the OPEB money that we can use, but from my personal point of view, I like to think of a balanced budget as revenues in equals expenditures, and that's what it is. We're not dipping into any sort of savings or slush funds. That in equals out. To me, that's what's balanced. We can argue that, till the cows come home. It doesn't matter how we look at it. We can, all have our different opinions. The third goal, or another goal, was to improve behavior, and another one was to increase staff retention. I understand this motion by Vice President Nichols may come as an October surprise, but until last Friday, we were under the belief that we would be spending only roughly $400,000 out of the OPEB money, and even at the ad hoc committee, that's what they were left believing as well. So I mean, surprise, surprise, surprise. I hope the school district of Beloit, all of us board members, all of us administrators, cabinet members, teachers, and parents as well, can embrace a mindset of continual, intentional, and genuine improvement. We need to shift away from merely surviving year to year to accelerate our actions until we achieve a status of thriving. We're not doing that. The school district of Beloit can, and I believe one day it will be, a destination school district. Now is the time for us to start making some of these difficult changes. In the 2022-23 school year, I came to this body as a former employee, a recently proud Purple Knight alumnus, and one of the constituents of this body. I implored you to do better based off of my experience as represented as a former employee, a parent, and a taxpayer. I implored you, do better, Beloit. This final budget is improved greatly over the preliminary budget we first saw earlier this summer. However, I believe we can do better. We can always do better. It should be understood that we are, at our core, always striving for improvement. While we, the board members and the administration, may believe this is what we're doing, based on the 3 failed referenda, it appears our constituents have been in disagreement with this. This summer, I ran into one of the district's building administrators, and the issue of the budget came up. Their comment to me was, well, we all have to sacrifice a little. This budget does not show me that this is the same sentiment for everyone. I don't see us all sacrificing a little in this budget. The ad hoc had suggested more than 1.4 million reductions be made out of COLAC, but only roughly 525,000 were reflected in Monday's presentation. This is a challenge for me to accept. The lopsidedness of the cuts in COLAC, of those little over $500,000 worth of cuts in COLAC, as Bob may say, gives me tummy trouble. I'm concerned about the disproportionate shifts of the workloads to the staff members whose positions were not cut. In some departments, we have 0 cuts. We have 6% cuts. In other departments, in COLAC, we have over 50% of their budget cut. The staff who are in departments of 0 to 6% may end up having quite a bit of resentment when they're having to burden a lot more work than those who haven't had to make as the same level of cuts. If we are to study the budget through the lens of our district goals, are we spending and cutting in the right places? This question of are our budget decisions reflecting our values, our mission, our vision? For those that don't know, our mission statement is committed to excellence and strengthened and enriched by diversity. We prepare each student to compete, to contribute, and thrive as an admirable person in a rapidly changing world by engaging students in a wide variety of high-quality, relevant programs in partnership with families, schools, and the state-line community. Our vision statement is preparing and inspiring each student to succeed in life and contribute to an ever-changing world. We're continuing to lose teachers. Yeah, we're continuing to hire teachers. When we have had teachers that have been here less than 2 weeks and they're leaving, it's very concerning to me. Although I did not see the board stipends in the final budget, as I had requested of the board months ago, hopefully we will each continue to commit to donating back 10% of our board stipend. I know it's not a lot, but I believe that we, all of us as leaders, should take action and say, this is what we're doing. As leaders, let's do this. I believe this action would build trust, staff morale, and community respect if the district leadership contributed a little bit as well. Whatever we do, whatever we decide, we must do it with our students in our hearts and at the core of every resulting action we take. As we move forward with next year's budget and development process, I like Bob's suggestion of reflecting and getting input from each board member. That's a wonderful idea. And I would even go further and encourage the ad hoc committee to weigh in on how we can make improvements and how we should have our budget reflect our values, our mission, and our goals, our goals and our vision statement. Making changes is never easy. It's never easy. But if you're going to become better, if you are going to change, it has to happen. We have to get better, we have to go through the process of change. I like all of these ideas that Vice President Nichols has brought forward. The $1.4 million was the original suggestion by the ad hoc committee. If we were to approve that, it would show them our support. Maybe we could say, okay, here is a goal of cutting $1.4 million. The removal of the SRO funding transfer to Fund 80 until the board approves a necessary MOU, that's not saying we're not going to do it. It just says we're going to wait until our ducks are in a row and then we'll do it. I think that's a good idea. And the use of the $2 million from Fund 73, if we have roughly 400 classroom teachers, the math seems to work. I like the idea of having the longevity pay for the current teachers, and I like us doing something for our teachers. What our teachers are going through on a day-to-day basis is a challenge. And many people don't even want to be in the classrooms anymore. They try to move up to become instructional coaches so that they don't have to be classroom teachers. This would show a little bit of appreciation to our teachers if we have this money sitting in a budget that we said we weren't going to touch, and now we're going to be okay with cutting, using 2.6 million of it. I'm okay with saying, let's use some more of it. To me, it doesn't seem to make, I mean, yes, I know there will be a negative financial impact on the other end, but if it's 2.6 million, the difference between 2.6 million or 3 million, I don't know if it makes that much of a difference. And those are my thoughts. We are voting on the amendment motion by Brian Nichols and seconded by Tom Hankins. Ms. Shope, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Greg Schneider?
Nay.
Amy Levy?
Nay.
Brian Nichols?
Aye.
Brian Anderson?
Nay.
Tom Hankins?
Aye.
Megan Miller?
Nay.
And Tia Johnson.
Aye.
Motion failed, 3-4.
Okay, now we are voting on the motion of the approval of the original budget for the 24-25 school year as made by Brian Anderson and seconded by Megan Miller. Ms. Shope, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Megan Miller?
Aye.
Tom Hankins?
Could I ask a question? Did we have a chance for discussion on that original motion?
I'm sorry, that's,
After it was moved and seconded.
I'm sorry, that was, 15 minutes ago, and I don't remember if I did that or not, so my apologies. Would you like to make a comment?
No, I'm just asking, Ms. Shope, did we have discussion on the original motion? It's a point of order.
From my notes, I would say no.
I'm so sorry. Board Member Miller, we've already begun the vote on this. Would you be opposed, or would any other board member be opposed if we open the floor for discussion on Mr. Anderson's original motion? And my deepest apologies for that. Ms. Miller, are you okay with that?
Once the voting is started, you cannot go back.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Board Member Hankins. Ms. Shope, would you please continue?
I'm sorry?
Oh, would you please continue the voting?
Sure. Tom Hankins?
I don't want to be a stickler, but point of order, does the parliamentarian say that that's what Robert's rule says, we can't go back once the vote starts?
May I respond?
That's what I'm asking for.
Well, I'm asking permission from our board president. Typically, when the parliamentarian makes a ruling, no one listens, so that's why I was intentionally quiet. But once you start voting, you should complete the voting process.
Well, should be, does that equal
You can do
Have
with that
to.
information whatever you would like.
We'll continue the vote, Mr. Hankins, if you don't object.
I'll pass it this time.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said.
I said I'll pass.
Okay. Brian Anderson?
Aye.
Brian Nichols?
Nay.
Amy Levy?
Aye.
Greg Schneider?
Aye.
Tia Johnson?
Aye.
And Tom Hankins, did you want to weigh in, or did you want to be an abstention?
Can I ask a question?
That's up to your board president.
A question regarding,
The vote. I mean, procedure.
yeah.
And that's what I was going back to. If it fails and or passes and or is tied or I abstain, the next step. Just for general knowledge, and I'm not trying to say which way I'm going to go. It's just knowledge for me, because I don't know where we go into the abyss after, if it gets defeated and or I abstain. If I could, and I'm not trying to be the rebel rouser, honestly.
No, I appreciate everything, and I understand you're trying to do it right, so my apologies again for missing that opportunity for discussion on this. If it helps you any right now, we have 4 votes that are ayes.
No, that's not my question. Point of order.
Yes, sir.
Per policy 183 voting method, the only reason for abstaining is a conflict of interest. Nothing else.
It does answer my question.
Okay.
My question goes into what happens. I guess it's past the point. So my vote is aye.
Motion carried 6-1.
Thank you. That brings us to item 3B, the 2024-25 tax levy adoption. The purpose of this item is the school board must set the levy on or before November 1st. The school board must certify the levy to the municipalities on or before November 10th. The background information for this one is the same as the previous item. Dr. Garrison?
It's the same information as mentioned in the reading, and so the district administrator and myself has not made any changes to the current conversation.
Thank you. Mr. Chady, you're listed as assisting in this. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Not really. I would just point out that the amounts listed in the proposed motion tie back to the original budget that the board just adopted, along with the presentation from Monday evening. So if somebody desires to read that, just please read it carefully, is all.
Thank you. Any discussion or any motions?
Mr.
Mine is more of an opine commentary on the whole process, which is very, very enlightening. This whole last 6 months has been very enlightening, engaging, and in the end, I think it's going to help this district. I have a lot of hope for this district. I know it'll be a shining star in 3 to 5 years. We got to do it. the hard work is being done tonight. And I've been in those rooms where people are not happy, and it's hard to cut people, especially people that work down the hall from you. It's not easy. But so my kudos is to everybody, and I do believe in the future, in next year's budget, we got to jump on it already, because I think admin has heard us loud and clear where we're going to go. So I'm very, very, very hopeful. No, I'm not hopeful. I know it's going to happen. So thank you, everybody.
Board Member Greg Schneider.
I move approval of the 2024-25 fiscal year total tax levy of $5,598,417, consisting of the Fund 10 General Operations Tax Levy of $4,283,725, Fund 38 Non-Referendum Tax Levy of $964,692, and a Fund 80 Community Service Fund Tax Levy of $350,000.
Second.
We have a motion of approval of the tax levy by Greg Schneider, seconded by Megan Miller. Any discussion? Greg, is your hand up for discussion? No, sorry. No problem. Hearing none, Ms. Shope, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Greg Schneider?
Aye.
Amy Levy?
Aye.
Brian Nichols?
Aye.
Brian Anderson?
Aye.
Tom Hankins?
Aye.
Megan Miller?
Aye.
And Tia Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Was that Amy Levy that made that motion?
It was.
Motion by Amy Levy, seconded by Brian Nichols. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wonderful.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned at 7:08. Thank you, everyone, for coming.